Advaitam Tatsajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sarvanadita Shri Shakan Visham Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunivadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaurav Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarvashastrabdhi Piyusha Sarvaveda Satmala Sarvasiddhanta Ratnadhya Sarvalokaikadakrada Sarvabhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kalidvanto Ditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita Paramananda Pathaya Premavarshaksharaayate Sarvada Sarvasevya Shri Krishnaya Namastume Madeka Bandho Matsangin Madguru Manmahadhana Manistaraka Madbhagya Madananda Namastute Asadhu Sadhutadayin Nadini Chatakara Anamanchikatachin Mam Premna Hritkanthi Yospura Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, 41, text 41 purport. A clear conception of the complete whole is given herewith. The living entity is different from the material elements. And the supreme living entity, the personality of Godhead, who is the creator of the material elements, is also different from the individual living entity. This philosophy is propounded by Lord Chaitanya as Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. Everything is simultaneously one with and different from everything else. The cosmic manifestation created by the Supreme Lord by his material energy is also simultaneously different and non-different from him. The material energy is non-different from the Supreme Lord, but at the same time, because that energy is acting in a different way, it is different from him. Similarly, the individual living entity is one with and different from the Supreme Lord. This simultaneously one and different philosophy is the perfect conclusion of the Bhagavata school as confirmed here by Kapila Deva. Living entities are compared to the sparks of a fire. As stated in the previous verse, fire, flame, smoke, and firewood are combined together. Here, the living entity, the material elements, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are combined together. The exact version of the living entities is like that of the sparks of a fire. They are part and parcel. The material energy is compared to the smoke. The fire is also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. In the Vishnu Purana, it is said that whatever we can see or experience, either in the material or spiritual world, is an expansion of the different energies of the Supreme Lord. As fire distributes its light and heat from one place, the Supreme Personality of God distributes its different energies all over his creation. The four principles of the Vaishnava philosophic doctrine are Shuddhadvaita, purified oneness, Dvaitadvaita, simultaneous oneness and difference, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita. This Dvaitadvaita is technically called Swabhavika Dvaitadvaita. Shuddhadvaita is Sridhar Swami, Krishna Swami. Swabhavika Dvaitadvaita is Nimbarkacharya, Keshav Kashmiri. Vallabhacharya is also presenting Shuddhadvaita philosophy. Vishishtadvaita is Ramanujacharya's philosophy. And Dvaita, sometimes referred to as Shuddha Dvaita, is Madhvacharya. Kevala Dvaita is Shankaracharya. That is some type of Ashuddha Dvaita. Similarly, there is Ashuddha Dvaita also. The Nyaya Darshan, it also has a Dvaita doctrine, but that has to be categorized as Ashuddha Dvaita. All four principles of Vaishnava philosophy are based on the thesis of Srimad Bhagavata explained in these two verses. Okay. Let's see if Dr. Siddhanta Saraswati has said anything here. No. All right. 42. Sarvabhuteshu chatmanam sarvabhutani chatmani ikshetananya bhavena bhuteshviva tadatmatam. The yogi should see the same soul in all manifestations, for all that exists is a manifestation of different energies of the Supreme. In this way, the devotee should see all living entities without distinction. That is realization of the Supreme Soul. What is this? Evam Sarv. What is this? Evam Sarvasmat Paramatman. Sarvasmat. Sarvasmat Paramatmanam Prathak Bhutam Vibhavya Tasya Sarvavastunam Karanatvam Layasthanatvam Cha Pashyet Ityaha. So one should understand that the Paramatma is distinct from everything and at the same time is the cause of all entities and the place in which everything merges. That is pointed out in this verse. Sarvabhuteshu iti. Karnasyeva karya atmatvam ityarthaha. Sarvabhuteshu cha atmanam indicates that he is the cause, and the cause is the same as the effect. There's many different ways by which there are statements of oneness found in the scriptures. And Karya Karana Advaita is one of them. Sometimes the cause and effect are identified as one. Just as we refer to gold in the mine, gold mine as gold, raw gold, but we also refer to gold ornaments as gold. Like if somebody has a lot of gold, then we say, oh, there's so much gold here. So now this is the product gold. That is the source gold. But the source and product are identified. Karyanam api layasthanatvad karana rupatvam ityaha sarveti. Sarvabhutani cha atmani. One should see the Paramatma in all beings, and one should see all beings in the Paramatma. What does all beings in the Paramatma mean? It means that one should understand that everything merges into him. All of this is an effect from him, and everything merges back into him. So he is both the cause and the effect. Ityaha sarveti. Tad atmatam mahabhuta atmatam. So he is the very Atma of the Mahabhutas. I'll read out Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's explanation. Bhuteshu, Bhutakaryeshu, Ghatashara Adav, Ghatashara, Sharav Adishu, Tadatmatam Iva, Yatha, Prithvivyadi Mahabhuta Atmatam Pashyati, Tatha. Just as one sees the gross elements to be identical with products made out of gross elements, like pot, pans, and so on, made out of clay, are identified with clay. One considers that this is clay, that is clay, both are clay and both are one in the real world. Tatha sarvabhuteshu cha sthavara jangama atmakeshu atmanam tad upadanataya iksheta pashyet. So one should consider the Supreme Being to be the ingredient cause of all the living creatures, both the moving and the non-moving. Atmanicha tat karyataya sarvabhutani ananya bhavena iksheta. And one should see everything to be his product. And in that way, one should understand that both of them are not separate from each other. Loke jeru bhuta karya samuhuke mahabhuter antarvarti bolia darshan kurya thaken. Just as in the world, one sees products of the gross elements, and one sees that the gross elements are found within them. In the same manner, Shairo, Bhakti Yogiyo, Sarvabhute Paramatma, एवं परमात्मा सर्वभूते अनन्य भाव दर्शन kuriya thake. So the Bhakti Yogi also continuously perceives the Paramatma amongst all beings and all beings in Paramatma. In that way, he has an inseparable vision of both of them. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, not only does the Supreme Soul enter each and every universe, but he enters even the atoms. The Supreme Soul is present everywhere in the dormant stage. And when one can see the presence of the Supreme Soul everywhere, one is liberated from material designations. The word Sarvabhuteshu is understood as follows. There are 4 different divisions of species. Living entities which sprout from the earth, living entities born of fermentation or germination, living entities which come from eggs, and living entities which come from the embryo. These 4 divisions of living entities are expanded in 8,400,000 species of life. A person who is freed from material designations can see the same quality of spirit present everywhere or in every manifested living entity. Less intelligent men think that plants and grass grow out of the earth automatically, but one who is actually intelligent and has realized himself can see that this growth is not automatic. The cause is the soul, and the forms come out in material bodies under different conditions. By fermentation in the laboratory, many germs are born, but this is due to the presence of the soul. The material scientist thinks that eggs are lifeless, but that is not a fact. From Vedic scripture, we can understand that living entities in different forms are generated under different conditions. Birds evolve from eggs, and beasts and human beings are born from the embryo. The perfect vision of the yogi or devotee is that he sees the presence of the living entity everywhere. 43. Swayonishu yatha jyotir एकम नाना प्रतीयते योनीनाम गुणवैषम्या तथात्मा प्रकृतौ स्थितः. As fire is exhibited in different forms of world, so under different conditions of the modes of material nature, the pure spirit soul manifests itself in different bodies. परमात्मनः प्रतिदेहवर्तित्वेन नानात्मप्रतीतिः भद्राभद्रादिप्रतीतिश्च न वास्तवी इत्याह. The Supreme Soul, because he is present in every body individually, is considered to be many. And also because he is found in auspicious, inauspicious, and mixed forms. And he is a sustainer for each of them. Then there is also this conception that he himself is auspicious when he is present in auspicious forms. He himself is inauspicious when in inauspicious forms, and so on. But these conceptions, they are not factually true. That is pointed out in the current verse. Swayonishu, Kashteshu, Jyotihi, Agnihi, Gunaveshamyad, Dairikhiya, Raswatva, Vakrima, Arjava, Gandha, Rupa, Adi, Bheda. So just as fire is exhibited differently in different forms of wood, meaning if the wood may be the piece of wood that is burning, it may be long, it may be short, it may be curved, it may be straight, and so on. It may be fragrant. So when the fire burns, then the fire also seems to assume the characteristics of that piece of wood. So the fire also appears to be long, short, curved, straight, or fragrant, and so on. Prakritau dehe atma paramatma tatha eva. That is the situation with the Paramatma who is found in the body, in each individual body. Here the word Atma can also be interpreted to refer to the Jivatma. Purport. It is to be understood that the body is designated. Prakriti is an interaction by the three modes of material nature, and according to these modes, someone has a small body and someone has a very large body. For example, the fire in a big piece of wood appears very big, and in a stick, the fire appears small. Actually, the quality of fire is the same everywhere, but the manifestation of material nature is such that, according to the fuel, the fire appears bigger and smaller. Similarly, the soul in the universal body, although the same quality, is different from the soul in the smaller body. Is different means is perceived to be different. The small particles of souls are just like sparks of the larger soul. The greatest soul is the super soul, but the super soul is quantitatively different from the small soul. Otherwise, this last sentence here, the soul in the universal body here, should be taken to refer to the supreme soul, Paramatma, who is of the same quality as the Jivatma. And the Jivatma is found in the smaller body. That explanation is also possible. The greatest soul is the super soul, but the super soul is quantitatively different from the small soul. Anu Atma, Vibhu Atma. The super soul is described in the Vedic literature as a supplier of all necessities of the smaller soul. Nityo Nityanam, Eko Bahunam, Yo Vidadhati Kaman. One who understands this distinction between the super soul and the individual soul is above lamentation and is in a peaceful position. When the smaller soul thinks himself quantitatively as big as the larger soul, he is under the spell of Maya, for that is not his constitutional position. No one can become the greater soul simply by mental speculation. The smallness or greatness of different souls is described in the Varaha Purana as Swamsha Vivinnamsha. The Swamsha soul is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu Tattva expansion. And the Vivinnamsha souls, or small particles, are eternally small small particles as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Mamevamsho jivaloke jivabhuta sanatanaha. The small living entities are eternally part and parcel. Sanatanaha mama eva amshaha. And therefore it is not possible for them to be quantitatively as great as a super soul. Not in the state of conditioning, not in the state of liberation also. 44. Tasmadimam Swam Prakritim Daivim Sadatmikam Durvibhavyam Parabhavya Swarupena Vatishthate. Thus the yogi can be in the self-realized position after conquering the insurmountable spell of Maya, who presents herself as both the cause and effect of this material manifestation, and is therefore very difficult to understand. There's a question here.
Hare Krishna, bro. So when we read that the soul size is 1/10,000 of the tip of hair, so some scientists may say that okay, then we'll find out the size of soul in some angstrom or something. It will come by measuring the tip of hair. So should we not take it literally 1/10,000 of the tip of hair?
It can be literal also, but it is not material anyway.
Yes.
It's not material now. So how can it be perceived through any material object? It can be inferred. His presence can be inferred only.
That size can be calculated like that. Achintya also it said one feature of the soul, as we read in Bhagavad Gita, Achintya.
Yeah, but it is explained what is the meaning of that Achintya. It means it cannot be perceived by sense perception.
Yes. Although they could calculate the size, but they could not perceive it through material things.
You cannot perceive it through any material device. No? Anu parimana. It definitely has a minute size. There were other philosophers who had different ideas. But we are very clear. It's Anu parimana. Minute in size. Okay, let's move on. Okay. Dharma Prabhu.
I just wanted to say, if we say that we cannot perceive, so it can't be calculated also in the terms that we calculate. In we calculate through material devices and all these things, isn't it? So when we say 1/10,000 of the tip of the hair, so it means that it is not something like that we see, we can calculate in whatever nanogram or whatever, means millimeter or whatever it is. We cannot do that. We cannot perceive, then we cannot calculate. So in that manner, it's just small, isn't it? Just very, very small.
But consistently, all the Vaishnava acharyas, they present it as having that size.
But if that is the size, then it can be said that, it can be argued that it can be, if you say that this is the size, then we can calculate the size. We can, by different instruments.
You cannot perceive it though.
If we can calculate, then we can perceive also. Calculation means what?
Not necessarily. Why?
Perceive, not just in the sense, for example, they say electron or proton. So they have their own method of perceiving the electron, proton.
No,
They
but you
can't
can only
see.
perceive anything which is having material, sound, touch, form, taste, smell.
So if it cannot be perceived, then how it can be calculated?
The calculation is coming from Shastra. The calculation is not coming from some material scientist.
No, that I
God can
understand.
calculate it. So God can calculate it.
So no, if you say the tip of the hair, 1/10,000 of the tip of the hair. So the tip of the hair, it can be calculated the tip of the hair.
So you can calculate that and you understand that the Jivatma is this size. That's all you can understand. You cannot perceive it, no?
Okay.
This is like there are ghosts. Right? Just like there are ghosts. You will not be able to capture them into a lab and analyze them and all that.
But there are yogis who can capture them in a particular place and the ghost cannot move from there.
Correct. But that is because they are using procedures which are coming from Shastra.
Yes, but that is also a kind of material procedure only.
That's okay. That's okay. But unless you surrender to Shastra, you cannot understand the dimensions of anything. The capacity, limited capacities of particular entities also you cannot understand. Achintya means that through your own endeavor, without surrendering to Shastra, there's nothing you can do. That's all. You can believe it or disbelieve it.
So, if someone puts forward this point that if spirit soul is there, how is it even possible for material units to measure it?
You can take it as a comparison. You can take it as a comparison. It is only a comparison.
To give an idea that how difficult
how
it is.
Small it is. Yeah. Only that much.
Means if we give a size to soul, then someone may say that if it is spirit, how can you give a material size to it?
No, why it cannot have certain properties? Why spirit cannot have? It's a limited spirit. The unlimited spirit is God.
So limited is
it is limited.
It can have material properties.
No, it has properties which are also found in matter.
Oh,
It has its own properties, which are also found in matter. We should always remember matter comes from spirit.
so in that sense, some of the properties may be captured by matter also. Properties
Just
of
like the
spirit.
soul, like the soul can see. Okay. And therefore the bodies can see.
But it is actually body is not seeing, the soul is seeing, isn't it?
Correct. Correct. But it has a faculty of visual perception.
Yes, that is also available only when, means active only when soul is there inside the body. So it
Correct.
means the only the spirit is saying.
Correct. Correct. But I'm simply saying, just like the soul has its own sense of visual faculty, you have that is what Brahma is doing. He's simply assembling all these senses of visual faculty, which can be utilized by souls only. Matter exists for souls.
So can it be said something like that for our understanding? Like when we put magnet and iron together for so much time, for example, a month or 10 days. So after some time, when we take away the magnet away, still the iron gets the for some time it has the magnetic property. It attracts the another iron without magnet itself.
Okay, so
in that manner, as long as the soul is there, um, uh, so the bodily faculty can see or can function in that way. When the soul is removed, for example, if you see that even the liver and something that works even for after the death, some 6 hours after the death also, and all those things. So can it be taken in that way?
quite possible. It must be something like that only. It must be something like that only.
So, Prabhu, we can also say that some of the properties of soul may be measured by material means as well, including the size.
No, but it cannot be perceived. How
So
can
that
it be
means
perceived?
it cannot be measured.
It cannot be perceived. See, here, I remember you worked out very interesting. He did something here. Look at this. The Jivatma is elementary unit of consciousness. There are innumerable Jivatmas. They can be neither created nor destroyed. All Jivatmas are qualitatively equal. The Jivatmas are not numerically describable, although they can exhibit quantifiable attributes such as position and space. The Jivatmas obey higher order psychological laws involving qualities and modes of activity that are not amenable to material formulation. The Jivatmas do not interact with matter according to the known laws of physics, such as the law of gravity or the laws of electromagnetism. The Jivatmas possess self-reflective conscious awareness, and they possess innate senses capable of perceiving both matter and other conscious entities. The Jivatmas tend to be associated with material bodies, but they are not dependent on matter and are fully capable of functioning without material connections. By numerically describable, we can only mean that all attempted numerical descriptions must be significantly incomplete. We do not mean that they cannot apply at all. So on principle, I don't understand why it cannot have uh, some kind of numerical property. Anyway, it comes in Vedanta discussions and all. It comes now. The size of the soul comes, I think, in the second chapter of Vedanta Sutra. There also, the commentators, they all discuss. There were different ideas. There was one idea that the souls are all pervading. There was another concept that the soul is as big as the gross body that it identifies with. Like that, there are different ideas. And Vyasadeva, he points out, no, it is anu. It is minute. It is minute. It has a finite size. Then again, further discussions are brought up. If it is small, then how it does not, how exactly it interacts with matter. All these things are all dealt with.
So,
At some point,
that this size now, it is actual size or indicative size? 1 by 10,000.
By indicative size, what do you mean? By indicative size, do you mean that actually the soul is God, unlimited, but that because we are too immature, we cannot understand it, and therefore the scripture says that it is 1/10,000 the size of the tip of a hair? Is that what you mean?
No, Prabhu. Scriptures want us to give an idea how small it is. So they have used this terminology so that some idea we can get that this is
like that. If you're saying that this kind of absolute symbolism is used, then that should be applied everywhere. It's like when we hear that Krishna Venum Konantam Aravinda Talayataksham Barhavatam Sam Asitambuda Sundarangam. His complexion is that of a dark monsoon cloud. Then obviously it is not talking about the complexion of the dark monsoon cloud of the material world. It is talking about the dark monsoon cloud of the spiritual world. Krishna Chakravarti explains that. But still, one who desires to attain Prema Bhakti as a sadhaka, he may consider, oh, my Lord has the complexion of a dark monsoon cloud. And in his meditation, he will superimpose the concept of the color of a dark monsoon cloud that he has experience of. Because he cannot go beyond that. But if he surrenders unto the Lord and progresses, then Krishna understands this situation, accepts it, and brings him up to the point of full spiritual realization and reveals his original characteristic. Then he, and that soul, after becoming perfect, understands, yes, he has the complexion of a dark monsoon cloud of the spiritual world. So that is everywhere. If you're going to say that this is some kind of absolute symbolism, then that's what it would refer to in every manner.
Okay, bro.
So it is achintya, but it is not bland, some kind of voidistic achintya. It is some kind of variegated achintya. Anyway, we will continue. And many things like this will be coming up. 44. Tasmat imam swam prakritim daivim saddasadatmikam durvibhavyam parabhavya swarupena avatisthate. Thus the yogi can be in the self-realized position after conquering the insurmountable spell of Maya, who presents herself as both the cause and effect of this material manifestation and is therefore very difficult to understand. Tasmat prakritireva nanatva darshayitritvat anarthakalini iti tam jayedityaha. Because Prakriti is the one who causes this perception of manifoldness. It leads one to a calamity. Therefore, one should conquer over Prakriti. Swam, Swiyam, Swapapadhim, ityarthaha. One should conquer Prakriti. The yogi, he conquers his Maya. Swam Prakriti. His Prakriti. What does his Prakriti means? It's that portion of Prakriti which is a material designation for him. Not that fully able to control all the entirety of Prakriti. That is not possible. Daivim, Karmamayim, Daivim, divine. Maya is divine in the sense that it is full of karma. My karmic reactions are all kept in store for me by the arrangement of Maya. Daivi means connected to Daiva. Daiva refers to destiny, and destiny simply is nothing but the accumulation of my own karmic reactions. Yadva, or else. Devasi Vishnu Shaktim Durvibhavyam Duratyayam Parabhavyam. Daivim can also simply refer to Vaishnavim. Deva being Lord Vishnu, Daivim would be Vishnu's potency, which is described as Durvibhavyam. Durvibhavyam, she who cannot be understood, which indicates that she is insurmountable. Duratyayam Parabhavya, after conquering the insurmountable spell of Maya. There's a reference to this in Bhagavad Gita. Daivi Shesha Gunamayi Mamaya Duratyaya Mame Viye Prapadyante Maya Metam Tarantite. Gita 7.14. Iti Bhagavad Uktya Eva Jitva. So conquering over Maya means conquering over Maya in terms of what has been stated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means one has to surrender unto Krishna. Swarupena Anavrta Chaitanya Rupena Avatishthate. Then he is able to be situated in his Swarupa, in his constitutional nature, which means when his consciousness is no longer covered by Maya. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that the spell of Maya, which covers the knowledge of the living entity, is insurmountable. However, one who surrenders unto Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, can conquer this seemingly insurmountable spell of Maya. Here also it is stated that the Daivi Prakriti, or the external energy of the Supreme Lord, is Durvibhavya. Very difficult to understand and very difficult to conquer. One must, however, conquer this insurmountable spell of Maya, and this is possible by the grace of the Lord when God reveals himself to the surrendered soul. It's also stated here, Swarupena Avatishthate. Swarupa means that one has to know that he is not the Supreme Soul, but rather part and parcel of the Supreme Soul. That is self-realization. To think falsely that one is a Supreme Soul and that one is all-pervading is not Swarupa. This is not realization of his actual position. The real position is that one is part and parcel. It is recommended here that one remain in that position of actual self-realization. In Bhagavad Gita, this understanding is defined as Brahman realization. With Brahman realization, one can engage in the activities of Brahman. As long as one is not self-realized, he engages in activities based on false identification with the body. When one is situated in his real self, then the activities of Brahman realization begin. The Mayavadi philosophers say that after Brahman realization, all activities stop. But that is not actually so. If the soul is so active in its abnormal condition, existing under the covering of matter, how can one deny its activity when free? An example may be cited here. If a man in a disease condition is very active, how can one imagine that when he is free from the disease, he will be inactive? Naturally, the conclusion is that when one is free from all disease, his activities are pure. It may be said that the activities of Brahman realization are different from those of conditional life, but that does not stop activity. This is indicated in Bhagavad Gita 18.54. After one realizes oneself to be Brahman, devotion service begins. Mad bhaktim labhate param. After Brahman realization, one can engage in the devotion service of the Lord. See, the Mayavadi people, they say first step is karma, next step is bhakti, and the last step is jnana, after which one attains Brahman realization. So their argument is, look at Bhagavad Gita, first 6 chapters is karma, next 6 chapters is bhakti, next 6 chapters is jnana. So this should be understood to be the progress in spiritual development. But in Bhagavad Gita, we don't find that. We see Brahmabhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samas sarveshu bhuteshu, and then mad bhaktim labhate param. So bhakti actually takes place after Brahman realization. So the Mayavadis got it wrong. Therefore, devotion service of the Lord is activity in Brahman realization. For those who engage in devotion service, there is no spell of Maya, and that situation is all perfect. The duty of the living entity as a part and parcel of the whole is to render devotion service to the whole. That is the ultimate perfection of life. Chapter 29. Yes.
So here it is written that after Brahman realization, one can engage in the activities of Brahman. So, as like you said once, Prabhu, that devotee, he realizes Brahman himself and God at the same time. God relation and self relation takes place at the same time. So, so before that, he is not said to be engaged in spiritual activity or activities of Brahman or devotional service.
There are some who first experience Brahman realization, then Paramatma realization, then Bhagavan realization. Because various combinations are allowed. So that is also there. Here, Prabhupada, by Brahman realization, he refers to a person who has realized he is not this body. Since there are different stages, at a certain stage, one realizes that he is actually not part of this material world at all. And that Prabhupada refers to as Brahmabhuta. Brahmabhuta Prasannatma, Na Shochati, Na Kankshati, Samasarveshu Bhuteshu. These are all external symptoms of a person who has reached that point. Then Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. This is Parabhakti. This is transcendental bhakti. Prior to this, one is engaging in Apara Bhakti, mixed devotion service. This is pure devotion service. Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. And then Bhakti Amam Abhijanati, Yavan Yaschasmi Tattvataha. This is in Ramanuja. In the Ramanuja school, they call it Paragyana. They have three stages: Parabhakti, Paragyana, and Paramabhakti. Paramabhakti is later. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavan ischasmi tattvataha tato mam tatoto gyatva vishate tadanantaram. Vishate tadanantaram. Now one engages in Paramabhakti. We talk about Sadhana Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti, Prema Bhakti. They talk about Parabhakti, Paragyana, and Paramabhakti. In the Madhva line, they have expressions like Bhakti, Pakva Bhakti, Paripakva Bhakti, Ati Paripakva Bhakti. Their Ati Paripakva Bhakti corresponds to our Prema Bhakti. So there are different stages of engagement in devotional service. That should be recognized. So these activities of Brahman realization refer to a person who, after a full spiritual realization, is engaged in various activities. That is Prabhupada's point.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. Chapter 29. Explanation of devotional service by Lord Kapila. 1 and 2. देवहूतिरुवाच लक्षणं महदादीनां प्रकृतेः पुरुषस्य च स्वरूपं लक्ष्यते मीशां येन तत् पारमार्थिकं यथा सांख्येषु कथितं यन्मूलं तत् प्रचक्षते भक्तियोगस्य मे मार्गं ब्रूहि विस्तरशः प्रभो. Devahuti inquired, my dear Lord, you have already very scientifically described the symptoms of the total material nature and the characteristics of the spirit according to the Sankhya system of philosophy. Now I shall request you to explain the path of devotion service, which is the ultimate end of all philosophical systems. So explicitly, if you ask me, please describe that which is referred to as Bhakti Yoga. एकोनत्रिंशके भक्ति सगुणा निर्गुणा पिच लक्ष्यते प्राणि सम्मान क्रमः कालबलं च तत्. In chapter 29, Bhakti, which is Saguna and Nirguna, are going to be described. Saguna means materialistic bhakti. Nirguna means non-materialistic bhakti. They will all be characterized, these different forms. And the movements of the various living creatures, as well as the power of time, that will also be described here. Sankhya yogam cha shrutva punar ukta anuvada purvakam swanustheyatvat shrutamapi bhakti yogam saprabhedam shushushamana prachati. So she has heard about Sankhya and yoga, and she refers to that here. And even though she has already heard about Bhakti Yoga as something that she is meant to execute, now she is desirous to know about the different varieties of Bhakti Yoga. So therefore, Sri Devahuti is asking now this question. Mahadadinam lakshanam sankheshu sankhya shastreshu yatha tatha kaditam yena lakshanena amisham mahadadinam swarupam tat prasiddham lakshyate gyayate. The characteristics of Mahatattva, Ahankara, and so on, all of them have been described according to the Sankhya texts. It is through such identifiable characteristics we can understand all of them properly. That is quite well known. Idrisham, what is the nature of each of them? Paramarthikam, parampara, what is it? Parampara vibhakta? Must be paraspara vibhakta. Paramarthikam, paraspara vibhakta. Not parampara, paraspara. Paramarthikam means factual. They have been described factually. In other words, they have been distinctly defined, each one as being distinct from each other. So the definitions for these elements have been proper. Tat swarupa jnanam yan moolam yat karanakam prachakshate yam vina tesham swarupam gyatamapi agyatameva bhavati iti arthaha. And on top of it, you have also described them along with the description of their root cause, without which, even if we know about the characteristics of Mahatattva, Ahankara, and the various products of matter, we would actually not understand them properly. Tasya, bhavati yogasya, what is that? Must be bhakti yoga. Tasya bhakti yogasya margam prakaram bruhi. Tasya bhakti yogasya margam prakaram bruhi. So please now talk about the different modes of engagement of bhakti yoga. In this 29th chapter, the glories of devotion service are elaborately explained, and the influence of time on the conditioned soul is also described. The purpose of elaborately describing the influence of time is to detach the conditioned soul from its material activities, which are considered to be simply a waste of time. In the previous chapter, material nature, the spirit, and the Supreme Lord or Super Soul are analytically studied. And in this chapter, the principles of Bhakti Yoga or devotion service, the execution of activities in the eternal relationship between the living entities and the personality of Godhead are explained. Bhakti Yoga devotion service is a basic principle of all systems of philosophy. All philosophy which does not aim for devotion service to the Lord is considered merely mental speculation. But of course, Bhakti Yoga with no philosophical basis is more or less sentiment. There are two classes of men. Some consider themselves intellectually advanced and simply speculate and meditate. and others are sentimental and have no philosophical basis for their propositions. Neither of these can achieve the highest goal of life, or if they do, it will take them many, many years. Vedic literature therefore suggests that there are three elements, namely the Supreme Lord, the living entity, and their eternal relationship, and that the goal of life is to follow the principles of bhakti or devotional service, and ultimately attain to the planet of the Supreme Lord in full devotion and love as an eternal servitor of the Lord. Sankhya philosophy is the analytical study of all existence. One has to understand everything by examining its nature and characteristics. This is called acquirement of knowledge. But one should not simply acquire knowledge without reaching the goal of life or the basic principle for acquiring knowledge, Bhakti Yoga. If we give up Bhakti Yoga and simply busy ourselves in the analytical study of the nature of things as they are, then the result will be practically nil. It is stated in the Bhagavatam that such engagement is something like husking a paddy. There is no use beating the husk if the grain has already been removed. By the scientific study of material nature, the living entity and the super soul, one has to understand the basic principle of devotional service to the Lord. Okay. 3. Virago yena purusho bhagavan sarvato bhavet achakshval jivalokasya vividha mama samsritihi. Devahuti continued, my dear Lord, please also describe in detail, both for me and for people in general, the continual process of birth and death. For by hearing of such calamities, we may become detached from the activities of this material world. Bhakto praveshaya kinchit vairagyam apekshiyate iti tadartham prichhati viragaha iti. In order to enter into bhakti, a little bit of vairagya is required. Tadartham prichhati, and for that sake, therefore, he inquires about vairagya. Viraga iti. Taha samsatihi achakshva. Please speak about the repetition of birth and death, about the continual process of birth and death. Yena samsriti akhyanena. For by hearing of such calamities, the continual process of birth and death is nothing but a series of calamities. From Karma Shastra to Jnana Shastra to Yoga Shastra, and when it comes to Bhakti Shastra, Vairagya, Vidya, and Vishnu Bhakti, continuously you will see that they increase in intensity. So not only does one have a better understanding of the universe in Karma Shastra, and better than that in Jnana Shastra, and better than that in Yoga Shastra, and better than that in Bhakti Shastra, the amount of Vairagya that is specified for Karma Shastra, first of all, it is very high compared to the natural adharmic activities that conditioned souls will tend to engage in. But in Jnana Shastra, Vairagya is higher, both internally and externally, and in terms of conception also. The perception also is in line with such conception of Vairagya. The very perception of this world, everything is interpreted in terms of Vairagya. So in Jnana Shastra, Vairagya is higher. Yoga Shastra, it's even more higher, that we clearly understand. And in Bhakti Shastra, it is supreme. Therefore, you see, this world itself is described as a series of miseries. In this verse, the word samsritihi is very important. Shreyasriti means the prosperous path of advancement towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and samsriti means the continued journey on the path of birth and death towards the darkest region of material existence. So on one hand, you have Shreyasriti, and on the other hand, we have Samsarasriti, movement towards the ultimate good and movement towards the cycle of birth and death, which is just darkness. People who have no knowledge of this material world, God, and their actual intimate relationship with Him, are actually going to the darkest region of material existence in the name of progress in the material advancement of civilization, To enter the darkest region of material existence means to enter into a species of life other than the human species. Ignorant men do not know that after this life, they are completely under the grip of material nature and will be offered a life which may not be very congenial. How a living entity gets different types and different kinds of bodies will be explained in the next chapter. This continual change of bodies in birth and death is called samsara. Devahuti requests her glorious son, Kapila Muni, to explain about this continued journey, to impress upon the conditioned souls that they are undergoing a path of degradation by not understanding the path of Bhakti Yoga, devotional service. 4. Kalasyeshwara rupasya paresham cha parasyate swarupam bata kurvanti yadheto kushalam jana. Please also describe eternal time, which is a representation of your form and by whose influence people in general engage in the performance of pious activities. Kalasya cha swarupam achakshva. Please also describe the nature of kala, time. Actually, time is the force of material nature. It is that which brings about destruction within the manifestations of material nature. Te tuadrupasya. And time is a representation of your form. Kala is a form of the Supreme Lord. Yad heto, kala bhayad heto. And because of time, people engage in performance of pious activities. It is due to fear of the destructive impact of time that pious souls engage in pious activities. However ignorant one may be regarding the path of good fortune and the path down to the darkest region of ignorance, everyone is aware of the influence of eternal time, which devours all the effects of our material activities. The body is born at a certain time, and immediately the influence of time acts upon it. From the date of the birth of the body, the influence of death is also active. The advancement of age entails the influence of time on the body. If a man is 30 or 50 years old, then the influence of time has already devoured 30 or 50 years of the duration of his life. Everyone is conscious of the last stage of life, when he will meet the cruel hands of death. But some consider their age and circumstances, concern themselves with the influence of time, and thus engage in pious activities, so that in the future they will not be put into a low family or an animal species. Generally, people are attached to sense enjoyment and so aspire for life on the heavenly planets. Therefore, they engage themselves in charitable or other pious activities. In way, it's commonly understood that charity is engaged in to benefit our afterlife. But actually, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, one cannot get relief from the chain of birth and death, even if he goes to the highest planet, Brahmaloka, because the influence of time is present everywhere within this material world. In the spiritual world, however, the time factor has no influence. 5. Lokasya mithya bhimatera chakshushas chiram prasuptasya tamasya nashraye shrantasya karma swanuvidhaya dhiya tvam ma virasi ila yoga bhaskara. My dear Lord, you are just like the sun, for you illuminate the darkness of the conditional life of the living entities. Because their eyes of knowledge are not open, they are sleeping eternally in that darkness without your shelter, and therefore they are falsely engaged by the actions and reactions of their material activities, and they appear to be very fatigued. Lokasya mithyaabhimatehe abhimana jadya nivartanaya chakshuhu prakashadanaya tamasi. Why is it achakshuha? Wait, let me look at this. What is this? Text number 5. Anvaya. Mithyabhimatehe. Mithyabhute dehado abhimatihi ahankaraha yasya tasya achakshushaha agyasya anashraye apare tamasi samsare chiram sudhirgam kalam prasuptasya karmasu anuvidhaya asaktaya dhiya buddhya shrantasya lokasya जीवस्य प्रबोधनाय योगभास्करः योगप्रकाशकः त्वं किल आविरासि Avir Babhuvitha. You are the son of yoga. S-U-N, son. Which means you are the illuminator of the teachings of the yoga system. And you have appeared in order to wake up the jivas, the world of the conditioned souls, who are tired. They're tired because of their materialistic conceptions and attachment to fruitive activities. They are sleeping for a long time in the endless darkness of material existence. And they have no eyes, achakshushaha. They are ignorant. And that is because of their false ego, false identification with their body and so on. Lokasya mithyabhimatehi abhimana jagya nivartanaya. In order to remove the dullness of their misidentification, achakshushaha chakshuhu prakashadanaya. In order to grant eyesight to those without eyesight, tamasi samsara prasuptasya swapatamo nashaya. They're sleeping in darkness, in material existence. To destroy that darkness of sleep, karmasu asaktaya buddhya shrantasya shrama palvala samshoshanaya. These people, they're actually tired by the conception of attachment to fruitive activities. So, in order to dry up that small water body, he has appeared in the form of the sun, because when the sun arises, these small puddles of water, all of that, they dry up. Yoga Bhaskara, Bhakti Jnana Yoga Kamala Prakashakaha Bhaskaraha. So he has appeared in order to illuminate the lotuses of Bhakti, Jnana and Yoga. It appears that Srimati Devahuti, the glorious mother of Lord Kapila Deva, is very compassionate for the regrettable condition of people in general, who, not knowing the goal of life, are sleeping in the darkness of illusion. It is a general feeling of the Vaishnava or devotee of the Lord that he should awaken them. Similarly, Devahuti is requesting a glorious sun to illuminate the lives of the conditioned soul so that their most regrettable conditional life may be ended. The Lord is described here as Yoga Bhaskar, the son of the system of all yoga. Devahuti has already requested her glorious son to describe Bhakti Yoga, and the Lord has described Bhakti Yoga as the ultimate yoga system. Bhakti Yoga is a sun-like illumination for delivering the conditioned souls whose general condition is described here. They have no eyes to see their own interests. They do not know that the goal of life is not to increase the material necessities of existence, because the body will not exist more than a few years. The living beings are eternal and they have their eternal need. If one engages only in caring for the necessities of the body, not caring for the eternal necessities of life, then he is part of a civilization whose advancement puts the living entities in the darkest region of ignorance. Sleeping in the darkest region, one does not get any refreshment, but rather gradually becomes fatigued. He even invents many processes to adjust this fatigued condition, but he fails and thus remains confused. The only path for mitigating this fatigue in the struggle for existence is the path of devotion service or the path of Krishna consciousness. Bhakti Jnana Yoga Kamala Prakashaka. Here this word yoga can be applied to bhakti and it can also be applied to jnana, in which case it will mean that in order to illuminate the lotuses of Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga. He has appeared. Of course, the Jnana Yoga that he is teaching is Jnana Yoga which will lead to Bhakti Yoga. 6. Maitreya Vacha. Iti matur vacha shlakshnam pratinandyam mahamunihi abhabhashe kurushrestha pritastam karunarditaha. Sri Maitreya said, O best amongst the Kurus, the great sage Kapila, moved by great compassion and pleased by the words of his glorious mother, spoke as follows. Lord Kapila was very satisfied. Yes, there's some question here.
So, this attachment to fruitive activities, desire to enjoy the fruit or results of my activities, is there any description that how this came in my mind while serving Krishna? Because there the amount of bliss is unimaginable. So how this desire popped up that I should enjoy the results instead of Krishna enjoying them?
No, but this is just experienced by all conditioned souls. And when we execute pure devotion service to Krishna, then they go away. When we are engaging in mixed devotion service, it takes longer. Longer means a few lifetimes.
And originally in spiritual world, when I was enjoying the bliss of service to Krishna, at that moment, how this possibility means why it came if I was already happy that I should enjoy the result?
Because each of us have the option to make ourselves as unhappy as possible. The Jivatma has the right to become foolish. We are Tatastha Shakti.
Okay, bro.
Okay. 6.
Yes,
Maitreya Vacha. Iti matur vacha shlakshnam pratinandya mahamunihi. Did I read this? I think yes. 6. Maitreya Vacha. Iti matur vacha shlakshnam pratinandya mahamunihi abhabhashe kurushrestha pritastam karunarditaha. Sri Maitreya said, O best amongst the Kurus, the great sage Kapila, moved by great compassion and pleased by the words of his glorious mother, spoke as follows. Lord Kapila was very satisfied by the request of his glorious mother because she was thinking not only in terms of her personal salvation, but in terms of all the fallen conditioned souls. That should be noted, that the Lord always likes devotees who think about helping everyone. The Lord is always compassionate towards the fallen souls of this material world. Therefore, he comes himself or sends his confidential servants to deliver them. Since he is perpetually compassionate towards them, if some of his devotees also become compassionate towards them, he is very pleased with the devotees. In Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that persons who are trying to elevate the condition of the fallen souls by preaching the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, namely full surrender unto the personality of God, are very dear to him. Thus, when the Lord saw that his beloved mother was very compassionate towards the fallen souls, he was pleased, and he also became compassionate towards her. 7. Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Bhakti yogo bahuvidho margair bhamini bhavyate swabhava gunamargena pumsam bhavo vibhidyate. Lord Kapila, the personality of Godhead, replied, O noble lady, there are multifarious paths of devotion service in terms of the different qualities of the executor. Devanam gunalingana tyanena nirgunaya bhaktehe uttatva iha prathamam sagunam bhaktim lakshayitum aha. Already he had in 3.25.32 stated the features of nirguna bhakti, bhakti beyond the three modes of material nature. And therefore, here, first of all, he speaks this verse in order to define materialistic bhakti, saguna bhakti. Bhakti yoga eka eva bhamini. O noble lady, Bhakti yoga is only one. Bhavaha abhiprayaha tadvati purushe मार्गैः प्रकार विशेषैः बहुविधः भाव्यते चिन्त्यते ज्ञायते इत्यर्थः. However, corresponding to the man who is engaged in particular pathways of bhakti, that one bhakti yoga is perceived to be many. Such a bhavaha swabhava bhuta. Swabhava bhuta ye gunaha tama adayaha tesham margena vritti bhedena vibhindyate nana vibhedavan bhavati. Now that difference in conception is because there are different pathways corresponding to the gunas, tamaguna, rajoguna, satoguna. So therefore, due to the functions of the different modes of material nature, the pathways are also differentiated, and therefore bhakti yoga is said to have these different varieties. Bhakti swarupataha nirgunaha api पुंसां स्वाभाविकतमा आदि गुण उपरक्ता सती तामस्यादिनामपि सगुणा भवति इति भावः. The implication here is bhakti is naturally nirguna. Bhakti yoga is naturally nirguna. However, corresponding to the nature of the conditioned nature of the persons, swabhavik, it is colored by tamaguna, rajoguna, satoguna, and therefore it is given these different names: tamasika bhakti yoga, rajasika bhakti yoga, sattvika bhakti yoga, nirguna bhakti yoga, and so on. Should be nirguna. Okay. Pure devotion service in Krishna consciousness is one, because in pure devotion service there is no demand from the devotee to be fulfilled by the Lord, but generally people take to devotion service with a purpose. Now, even if we don't tell others about this purpose, Krishna knows it, and therefore Krishna reciprocates corresponding to all these desires and these purposes that are there in our heads. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, people who are not purified take to devotion service with 4 purposes. A person who is distressed because of material conditions becomes a devotee of the Lord and approaches the Lord for mitigation of his distress. A person in need of money approaches the Lord to ask for some improvement in his monetary condition. Others who are not in distress or in need of monetary assistance but are seeking knowledge in order to understand the absolute truth also take to devotion service. And they inquire into the nature of the Supreme Lord. This is very nicely described in Bhagavad Gita 7.16. Actually, the path of devotion service is one without a second. But according to the devotee's condition, devotion service appears in multifarious varieties, as will be nicely explained in the following verses. 8. Abhisandhaya yohimsa dambham matsaryameva va samrambhi bhinna drig bhavam mai kuryat satamasaha. Devotion service executed by a person who is envious, proud, violent, and angry, and who is a separatist, is considered to be in the mode of darkness. Tatra prathamam tamasim bhaktim lakshayan bhaktis tamasi syaditi vaktum anauchityam param rishan tadvan purusha eva tamasadi shabdaihi uchyate. Now, the Lord wants to characterize tamasika bhakti, but in considering that it would be inappropriate to say bhakti under this condition would be tamasic. He says the person who is engaged in such type of bhakti is referred to as a tamasic bhakta. So here also, if you examine the Sanskrit, saha tamasaha. That person who is like this is in the mode of ignorance. Literally, that is what the verse is saying. That person who has in view violence, pride, envy, who is angry, who has a separate vision, may engage in devotional service to me, and he is in the mode of ignorance. That is the literal meaning of this. Ityaha abhisandaya sankalpya. Visandaya means having in view or resolving to exhibit violence. He has resolved that violence is okay, pride is okay, envy is okay. All of this is okay within Bhakti Yoga. So he is angry, he has a separate vision. Each of this will be explained. Samrambhi, Sakrodha, angry person. Bhinnadrik, Bhedadarshi. Swasminniva parasminnapi sukadukam samanam na pashyati iti niranukampa ityartha. Bhinnadrik, Bhedadarshi means a person with separatist vision means he does not consider that others would be experiencing the same distress that I would be experiencing. And just as I try to remove my distress, I should try to remove others' distress also. Others would be happy the same way I would be happy. And therefore, the way I try to make myself happy, I should make others happy also. So he does not think like this. Therefore, he is said to have a separatist vision. Basically, it means that he has no sympathy for others. Niranukampaha. Yo mayi bhavam bhaktim kuryat sa trividhopi tamasaha. So even though a person may execute devotion services of 3 types, this person is tamasic. Asyaha tamasya bhaktehe traividyam spashtamuktam. Okay. Now I understand. Yo mayi bhavam bhaktim kuryat sa trividhopi tamasa. That person who executes bhakti, even though it is of 3 types, is tamasic. Which means that tamasic bhakti itself has 3 divisions. Brihan Yatha, as stated in Brihan Purana. Yascha anyasya vinashartham bhajate shraddhaya harim. Wow, these kinds of people exist. Phalavat prithivipala sa bhavati tamasadhama. Why does it say phalavat? Wait. Phalavat prithivipala. Phalavat. Okay. Yascha anyasya vinashartham bhajate shraddhaya harim phalavat prithivipala sa bhavati tamasadhama. That person who with faith engages in devotion service to Lord Hari in order to destroy somebody else, even though that destruction has happened, still he holds on to it. O king, he is the lowest amongst the tamasic worshippers of Lord Hari. Yor chayet kaitavadhiya swairini swapatim yatha narayanam jagannatham satu tamasi madhyama. That person who worships the Lord of the universe, Narayana, with the deceptive attitude, the way an unchaste, whimsical woman honors her husband deceptively. That kind of devotion service is intermediate tamasic. Deva puja param drishkva spardhaya yorchaye dharim shunishva prithivipala sa bhaktis tamasottama. Considering people engaged in worship to the Lord, engage in worship of the Lord, in a competitive spirit, he who engages in worship of Lord Hari, listen to me, O king, his bhakti is first class tamasic. So you have first class tamasic, second class tamasic, third class tamasic. Evam rajasya satipyasya bhakti traivedyam muktam drashtavyam. In that way, one can consult the scriptures. It talks about the three types of rajasic devotees, three types of sattvic devotees also. Interesting to research it out. Brihan Naradiya. It has already been stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, that the highest, most glorious religion is the attainment of causeless, unmotivated devotion service. In pure devotion service, the only motive should be to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is not actually a motive, that is a pure condition of the living entity. In the conditioned stage, when one engages in devotion service, he should follow the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master in full surrender. The spiritual master is a manifested representation of the Supreme Lord because he receives and presents the instructions of the Lord as they are by disciplic succession. It is described in Bhagavad Gita that the teachings therein should be received by disciplic succession, otherwise there is adulteration. To act under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master with a motive to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pure devotional service. But if one has a motive for personal sense gratification, his devotion service is manifested differently. Such a man may be violent, proud, envious, and angry, and his interests are separate from the Lord's. One who approaches the Supreme Lord to render devotion service, but who is proud of his personality, envious of others, or vengeful, is in the mode of anger. He thinks that he is the best devotee. Devotion service executed in this way is not pure, it is mixed and is of the lowest grade, tamasaha. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur advises that a Vaishnava who is not of good character should be avoided. This he says elsewhere in 7th canto commentary. He says, a Vaishnava is one who has taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the ultimate goal of life. But if one is not pure and still has motives, then he is not a Vaishnava of the first order of good character. One may offer his respects to such a Vaishnava because he has accepted the Supreme Lord as the ultimate goal of life. But one should not keep company with the Vaishnava who is in the mode of ignorance. 9. Vishayan abhisandhaya yasha aishwaryameva va archadau archayedyo mam prathakbhava sarajasaha. The worship of deities in the temple by a separatist with a motive for material enjoyment, fame, and opulence is devotion in the mode of passion. Prathak mattaha anyatra vishayadishu eva bhavaha spruha yasya saha. Separatist. It means this person, he has a hankering for so many other things, material objects and so on, other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that makes him into a separatist in the mode of passion. The word separatist must be understood carefully. The Sanskrit words in this connection are bhinnadrik and prathak bhavaha. A separatist is one who sees his interest as separate from that of the Supreme Lord. Mixed devotees or devotees in the modes of passion and ignorance think that the interest of the Supreme Lord is supplying the orders of the devotee. The interest of such devotees is to draw from the Lord as much as possible for their sense gratification. This is the separatist mentality. Actually, pure devotion is explained in the previous chapter. The mind of the Supreme Lord and the mind of the devotee should be dovetailed. That means the devotee's mind should be dovetailed with the mind of the Supreme Lord. The devotee should not try to make the Lord's mind dovetail his mind. A devotee should not wish anything but to execute the desire of the Supreme. That is oneness, meaning oneness of interest. When the devotee has an interest or will different from the interest of the Supreme Lord, his mentality is that of a separatist. When the so-called devotee desires material enjoyment without reference to the interest of the Supreme Lord, or he wants to become famous, or opulent, by utilizing the mercy or grace of the Supreme Lord, he is in the mode of passion. Mayavadis, however, interpret this word separatist in a different way. They say that while worshipping the Lord, one should think himself one with the Supreme Lord. This is another adulterated form of devotion within the modes of material nature. The conception that the living entity is one with the Supreme is in the mode of ignorance. Oneness is actually based on oneness of interest. A pure devotee has no interest but to act on behalf of the Supreme Lord. When one has even a tinge of personal interest, his devotion is mixed with the three modes of material nature. Okay, I'll stop with that. Vanshakalpatarubhyascha kripasinduਭ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः.